Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football and welcome back to Football Theory. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by my friend and co-worker, the newest member of the On Texas Football family who needs no introduction. It's our own Jeff Howe. We got a lot to get into today. I want to get into what are the most explosive offensive concepts. You talked about explosive plays not too long ago, Jeff, on the On Texas Football website. And I want to get into what are the most explosive concepts in the passing game for Texas. We can talk a little bit about the run game, but I think we already know what the most explosive run game concepts are for Texas. I want to talk about the passing game, so we'll get into that. And then Jeff's going to dive into some defensive discussion. He's going to get into Kenny Baker's preferred ideology on the defensive line compared to previous defensive line coaches, including Bo Davis. So I want to talk about that. It's going to be really, really fun. Before we do that, though, let's thank our fantastic sponsor, Laura Baker. Football Theory is brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So please give her a shout today if you have any concerns or needs regarding real estate in the Austin area. 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Thank you very much to Laura Baker and her team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football. Jeff, how's it going, brother? How are you first and foremost?
Man, I'm glad that we've got spring football set. The practice schedule is out. At least we reported it on Texas Football, and we know when the spring game is going to be, or the fan appreciation day is going to be on April 26th. So I'm excited, man. It means we're less than a month away from the start of spring practice. So at least we can start the countdown clock.
That's true too. And I kind of enjoy the offseason a little bit because I get a chance to go, me and you, we like to go rabbit holing, man. Go deep down the rabbit hole, do some research. You do get some of that time in the offseason. Actually, with a daughter, I have less of that time, but still, you do get some of that time in the offseason. So I did some diving. You actually inspired me. You were talking about 20 these explosive plays for Texas, and it got me to doing some film study, and I wanted to figure out what are the most explosive offensive concepts for Texas. Now, in the running game, it's pretty easy. I mean, Texas, it's the outside zone. I remember these from my notes from last season. The last 7 games of the season, if you're looking at explosive runs, just 10-plus yard gains on the ground in the running game. Over 70% of your explosive runs via the running back, all right, just traditional running back runs. Over 70% of them were outside zone in the last 7 games. So that was your bread and butter concept. Mm-hmm. That was your most explosive run game concept. Nothing even came close. Nothing else came close to it, Jeff. I mean, when you're talking about counters or you're talking about pin and pull concepts or duo, inside zone, whatever concept you want to name, nothing came close to being as explosive on the ground as Texas with the outside zone. They were they ran outside zone at a top 10 rate in the Power 5. Trey Wiesner actually was top 10 in the Power 5 in rushing yards from the outside zone. That was their most explosive run concept. So no surprise there, right? I mean, that's kind of what the challenge, I believe, this year is going to be, to have a little bit more variety and diversity when it comes to generating some of those chunk yardage plays on the ground with something other than the outside zone. Because as we saw late in the season when teams figured out or came up with their own recipe to defend it, Texas didn't really have anything else they can lean on in the running game.
Yeah, and it's not that outside zone is a bad concept, or that it's flawed. It's just that I think Texas just got to the point last year where they were too reliant on it. Like you said, Rod, they really that was their haymaker. And then when somebody threw a good counterpunch, this run game really wasn't designed to have a good counter to the counter. Yeah. So it's different when you had a guy like Bijan and Rojo. You could have whatever run game concepts you wanted because those guys were able to maximize runs, with their ability to make yards after contact. In other words, if it's blocked for no gain, they'll get you a couple yards. If it's blocked for 3 to 5, man, they're going to get you 7 or 8. And if you block it for 8+, that's when they're ripping off explosive runs. Not to say Trey Wiesner couldn't do that. I just feel like, because I'm a big Trey Wiesner fan, his toughness, what he did on special teams as a true freshman, you knew he's a guy that's going to maximize whatever he's got. And he had 1,000 yards last year. But I just felt like the running game was too hamstrung. No fault of his, or really no fault of the offensive lines. It's just you were kind of missing that other element, whether it was another concept, a different type of runner. And maybe Jarrett Gibson could have been that guy. but we never really saw him take that ascent that it looked like he was going to take during the Michigan game. I think at some point you realize how much you miss CJ Baxter. So it just felt like, Rod, the run game all year, it was just way too feast or famine. And I think you laying out with outside zone right there, yeah, it was your most explosive concept because it's the one you ran disproportionately to everything else. So the numbers should have said that it was your most
true
concept.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that, but you're right. I mean, was it their most explosive concept, or is it the fact that they leaned on it so heavily that the numbers would tell you that of course it's going to be the most explosive concept? But I would go look at that. But throughout the season, actually, Texas was pretty balanced. They were 52% zone scheme compared to 48%, but the last 7 games of the season, which I kind of paid attention to, they were upwards of 60+% zone blocking scheme. So that's pretty much what they relied on. All right. So
when it hit, go back and watch the Clemson game, that 77-yard touchdown run Jaden Blue had, where you got guys climbing at second level. When outside zone hits, it's beautiful. It looks great. But like I said, you need to have something else. You need to have the counter punch. So what I hope for 2025, I hope that the run game, it just happens organically, whatever you're going to lean on. Because keep in mind, this is an offensive line. There's some talented pieces, no question. We're talking about Trevor Gooseby. I think Nato Amazula is going to give you a boost in the run game as a drive blocker, but it's a group that hasn't played a lot of football together. So it's going to take them some time to figure out what they do well. The unfortunate part of that is usually you take your season opener to kind of get your feet wet and figure out what you're going to do, but your season opener this year is really not conducive to that.
Yeah, no, that ain't going to happen against Ohio State. You don't want to be you don't want to be going in there trying to tinker and figure things and experiment with things when you're going up against Ohio State. No, it's a good point. And I think ultimately this year they will be a little more diversified. Hopefully they'll have more healthy running backs at their disposal and then be able to utilize, like you said, all the different skill sets. Jerry Gibson, CJ Baxter, Trey Weiss are thrown in there. And then I think you'll get more variety in the running game. I think they leaned on outside zone a lot too. It's because, man, Trey Weiss was so good at it. It was really he was very compatible with it. His vision, his patience, his burst. You talk about his grit and some of those intangibles, but physically, he really was compatible with the outside zone. I think if CJ Baxter was healthy, you would have had more of a healthy mix of inside zone, maybe a little bit more power concepts in there too. Hopefully that is the case next season. All right. I wouldn't look at the passing game though, because I think we've discussed ad nauseum. The most explosive run concept is obviously the outside zone for Texas. I wouldn't look at the passing game, and I'm looking at passing plays of at least 20 yards. So that's an explosive pass play to me. And when I looked at it and broke it all down, I broke it down into concepts. I mean, I went and looked at every individual route. I looked at, the flood, crossing routes, drags, and overs and unders, and the deep drags, those deep rainbow crossers, the out and up stalk, slant, skinny post, slant, swing routes, wide receiver screen, dagger, post, stalk, slant. I mean, I broke it all down, and that will take us all day. So I'm not going to give you all of that. I got pop pass, wheel routes. I mean, I got probably, 30, 40 different routes in here. But sometimes conceptually, you can almost pack these things into different compartments or buckets, if you will. And so I just did crossing routes. So we're talking about drag routes, shallow drags, deep rainbow crossers. I threw them all into the mix, right? I took slants and glances, which is kind of the same thing. Slants, glances, and skinny posts. I put those all in the same bucket. So I want to look at conceptually what are the most explosive passing concepts. And turns out right now it's, at least for this past offense, this past season, it was the slants or glances or skinny posts. Makes a lot of sense because Sarkis an RPO-based passing game. So there's a lot of glance routes from that RPO game. He loves the run to daylight philosophy, as he calls it. So he wants to hit his wide receivers on the move. And man, if you're looking at slants, glances, or skinny posts, that accounted for almost 13% of your explosive pass plays. If I throw in the stalk slant essentially is when you act like you're blocking a guy and then boom, go to the slant. You're talking about over 14% of your explosive pass plays came from that bucket of concepts: slants, glances, skinny posts, and stalk slants, if you will. And I was a little surprised by that. I thought it'd be like deep crossers, because that's one of the That's one, in my opinion, the conceptual signatures, if you will, of Sark's offense. You better learn how to defend them deep crossing routes or even the shallow crossing routes. That was the second most explosive concept behind the slants, glances, or skinny posts. So second would be your crossing routes, most of them drags and shallow crossers. He loves the wide cross concept, especially with Helm a lot of the times, and those deep rainbow crosses. But I got 11%, a little over 11% of your explosive plays coming off crossing routes, whether it be deep, shallow, whatever. So those basically are your two most explosive passing concepts. I'm looking at the buckets. Like I can go to individual. I'm going individual routes. It's probably looking here. It's just one individual route. It'll probably be either the slant or the shallow cross, the shallow drag route.
When you're talking about that, I like how you turn that around. That bucket of plays, specifically your glances, your skinny posts, your slants. In an RPO heavy offense, that makes sense, especially an RPO heavy offense where Quinn's getting the ball out quick. Yes. A lot of your RPO tags. Everybody's got different things that they tag. It seemed like forever people were tagging, a bubble or a hitch or whatever. Now it seems like that glance in Sark's offense, the glance is going to be the primary tag on a true RPO. It's really hard to differentiate whether it's a run pass option, a run option, or it's just a pass all the way. It can be tough to differentiate, but I think one of the things that's a telltale sign from Sark's offense, if you see it's a glance or a skinny post, something in that bucket you talked about, Rod, that's kind of one of the tells you no, that was probably an RPO because that's something that Sark likes to tag, passing tag to the run. He likes it. He likes that.
Yep. No, it's a good point about it, especially with Quinn ball coming out quick. Yep. I wonder with Arch, this stuff is going to change up a little bit because I went and looked at just kind of true deep concepts, 9 routes. Say the slot fade, which worked really well with Texas. If you're looking at just slot fades, 9 routes, kind of put those in the same bucket as well. You're a little around 8% of your explosive plays, just straight up 9 routes, straight up slot fades. Nothing wrong with that. But what I love, another conceptual signature of Sark is probably the screen game. You look at why. So I threw all the screens in one bucket. Wide receiver screens, running back screens, threw them in one bucket. Almost 11% of your explosive pass plays have come off just a screen game. So that would probably be your third most explosive concept overall behind crossing routes, that bucket of concepts, slants, glances, skinny posts. And then tied with screens is probably going to be, and honestly, I love this. I made a bucket of double moves.
Okay.
The whip route, I consider the whip route a double move. That whip in and then whip back out. There's more like that one. The stalk block and go. How many times they run that stalk block and go concept? Good
I
Lord.
like that. That's a good one.
Right? You can see it in your head. The hitch and go, the out and up. I even threw the stalk slant in there because I think the stalk slant has the same. It's trying to accomplish the same thing. All right, get you with undisciplined eyes, and I think it's a double move in there for the wide receiver because he blocks first, then goes on the slant. You're also talking about a little under 11%, right around 11% of your explosive plays. So the double moves, Sark probably should throw those in there a little bit more. You need a little bit more time to execute them, but the double moves work. I mean, that's a really consistent explosive concept for Texas. And thinking of explosive plays, the strange thing about it, and we talked about this when you did your breakdown on just explosive plays overall, and the players who had the most explosive plays last season. They were more explosive in 2020. They were more explosive this past season, than they were in 2023. And if you look at the personnel, you would assume 2023 Texas was just more explosive because they just had so many explosive players. A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy and J.T. Sanders, and you had Jonathan Brooks in there. This year, none of those guys, no C.J. Baxter, and you were still the most explosive offense in the country. That, to me, gives me a lot of optimism heading into this season because you don't have a lot of proven commodities returning, but last season you still had a lot of new faces coming in and you were more explosive than you were in 2023 in the SEC against other defenses, by the way.
Other than Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Trey Wisner, and if CJ Baxter's healthy, I think those are the 4 guys that probably I think Sark would probably use the term the ball needs to find them.
Yep.
Everybody else, though, the ball's just naturally going to find who it finds. You start talking about that a lot in this offense. Hey, the ball just happens to find some guys on some days. I think that's when we start talking about what's your running back rotation going to look like, what's the wide receiver circle of trust going to look like. how much 12 personnel are you going to use? You know, what's Jordan Washington's role going to be? I think that's where kind of those two things kind of come together of we're trying to figure out who these guys are going to be. Well, we don't know. And I don't know that Sark knows. And quite frankly, Rod, I don't know that Sark cares because it's going to be whoever it's going to be. Like you said, look at last year, you lost all that production with Mitchell and Worthy and Whittington, Baxter being injured. Jonathan Brooks is gone. Sanders is gone. And like you said, your explosives per game, like, however you want to slice it, you were a more explosive offense this year with what should have been unproven commodities. So I don't think it really matters to start other than the guys that need the football, which like Ryan Wingo, Trey Wisner, CJ Baxter, and DeAndre Moore. Those are the four guys. Everybody else, it'll find who it finds.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I think his system now, he knows, listen, I can generate explosive plays.
Yeah.
And that's like Bill Walsh, the late great Bill Walsh always said, other than turnover margin, that's the most important stat in football, explosive play margin. And strangely enough, Texas, they were winning the explosive play margin in some of the games they lost, but they lose the turnover margin and end up losing the game. You got to try to win both of those if you're going to beat teams like Georgia and beat teams like Ohio State. All right, there you go. So that's some explosive.
Before we move on to defense, though, Rod, real quick, where did you put like the wheel routes? Or did you put those with double moves or like I call the tight end rail, if you will?
Yeah, that route I did wheel routes. So my wheel routes here, they have how many explosive? You have two explosive. Now the crazy thing about it, you had one in the Ohio State game, a wheel route that didn't meet the explosive because it wasn't 20+ yards.
Oh,
right? Right. And so you actually, because I looked at that Texas route as well, where he would kind of run the wheel, act like he's running the wheel, and come back in and run the slant.
Yeah.
You had an explosive on that. You had two on the wheel routes. And so I didn't put those even in a bucket because they were kind of by themselves. But you're right about that, though. I mean, that goes to I should have put running backs in their own kind of bucket, like some of these running back concepts. Yeah. Because Texas route is that, the wheel route was that, and Sark was bullish and stubborn about that because he had a freak matchup nightmare in Jaden Blue, and he knew that.
Yeah.
And so maybe you're right in the running back screen game too. If I throw those in their own bucket, running back screens, you got 4, 6, 7. You'd be at right around 10 to 11% if I threw the running back concepts, screens, wheel route, Texas route. Oh, by the way, swing route. You threw that in there. The swing route. Oh man, on the swing route, you had 3 explosive plays. Just swing route. Just Jaden Blue in the flat, and then Quinn Ewers hitting him right on the move, like right on the money, putting the ball right on him where he didn't even have to break stride, just could put a move on the guy. You had 3 explosive pass plays just off that alone. So include that with the Texas route, with the running back screens. Honestly, you own to something, Jeff. That might be also in your top 5 buckets right there of explosive concepts.
Yeah,
you're really right. I didn't do that, Jeff. You're right. Actually, it would put you in the top 5 most explosive conceptual buckets. It's just running backs in the pass game. Which Sark has said what? This is the most underutilized weapon in the pass game is the running back.
The reason why I brought that up is I like and we think about Baxter and Wisner and how they're going to be used, and we'll see this evolve. But Sark's running back passing game, he's really adapted it to his personnel, right? Like with Bijan, that wheel route with Bijan was money. That was a money red zone play for Texas during Bijan's time. With Rojo and Jonathan Brooks, it was more of the traditional screen game or swing routes, things of that nature. And like you said, with Jaden Blue, you saw a little bit of that wheel or that rail. Also, you called it Texas route. I've always heard it referred to as an angle route, but basically you look like you're going to run the wheel or some kind of outbreak concept, and then boom, you stick a foot in the ground and cut it back inside. So it's basically the touchdown he scored against Georgia. If you want to go back and look at it, that's the touchdown he scored in that game. So that's going to be one of those things that this spring and this summer, when Sark's in the lab figuring it out, there's running back passing game concepts. It might be some of those. It might not, there might be a percentage divvied up because he's going to figure, okay, what's going to work best with Baxter? What's going to work best with Blue? If James Simon's in there, how do we figure it out? If Ryan Niblett's my guy, how do I figure how do I get him the football in the passing game? So he's got a bunch of running back passing concepts on the table. It's just what's going to fit the personnel. No,
Jeff, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it. Honestly, how about this? It would put you second if I did a running back bucket, running back ways to weaponize the running back conceptually, right? wheel route, you put angle route, Texas route, whatever you want to call it, screen game, swing routes. You would generate 10 explosive pass plays off of that. So it would put you basically right up there at number 2 in terms of that conceptual bucket of explosive.
That makes sense. Okay, you're thinking about it, if you're doing a regular season, that's a little less than 1 per game. So that makes sense. Yeah.
That's pretty good. It's good stuff, good. All right, jumping on to the defensive side of things, I'll give you the floor because you want to talk about Kenny Baker and his philosophy on the defensive line and how he may differ from some of the previous D-line coaches.
Yeah, I'm going to credit Jerry Hamilton with this because Jerry got my wheels going on this. He was talking earlier this week about, Bo Davis, he believes is one of the best defensive line coaches in the country, coaching the run. Mm-hmm. And Jerry believes now that Kenny Baker is one of the best defensive line coaches in college football, coaching the pass rush. And I think, again, I'll borrow a Sark term, you get what you emphasize, right? If you go to a Texas practice, Rod, you've been to a Texas practice where Bo Davis is coaching D-line. It's all about defending the run. That's what Bo Davis's staples start with. It's all about fitting up on blocks, separate, find the football, that kind of old school approach to stop the run. If you watch Kenny Baker's guys work at practice, though, and I had a chance to catch Kenny Baker's lecture last year at the THSCA convention, he talked for an hour on pass rush. And if you just, and we don't obviously have time to go over it, but I was just looking back over some of my notes that he had from that, the lecture he had. And it's a lot of talking about the eyes, having a violent release, getting off the block. So it's less about, your punch and extending and finding the football. It's more about, I got to get this guy's hands off of me. I got to get loose from the block. I got to be disruptive. So I think Kenny Baker naturally is just, you look at the disruptors under Bo Davis, right? Even during Bo's first stint at Texas, those guys were natural disruptors.
Yeah.
Like you think about Malcolm Brown, Chris Whaley, Sweat, Murphy, Ojimo, those guys are natural disruptors. I'm not saying that Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton aren't, or Jermaine Lollet and Bill Norton aren't, but I feel like when you look at Kenny Baker's ideology, which I think puts a premium on pass rush, a violent separation, getting off blocks in a violent manner, using your hands and being naturally and being disruptive, it really lent itself to Texas playing, going back to what we talked about previously, right? It lent itself to Texas playing more middle field closed, more man coverage, because if you've got Sweat and Murphy, man, you can sit in a too high shell all you want because nobody's going to be able to run the football.
Period.
So it's in a way, I definitely didn't see it at the time. It's only now that I'm realizing it. I think Sark and PK hired the exact right defensive line coach they needed, knowing the way they needed to go philosophically on defense. Hey, we need more disruption at the line of scrimmage because we got to help our secondary out a little bit more. We got to change our coverage a little bit. So more middle field close on the back end, more disruption up front, and the front end tied with the back end in 2024 better than it did in 2023. And I think Kenny Baker, Rod, played a really big part of that. Just his ideology of let's be disruptive, let's get after the quarterback, let's work on making splash plays.
I love that connection because there's no doubt when you had T Sweat and you had Byron Murphy in there, you had the best, and I say this all the time, the best defense in the country with a light box. Sorry, best rush defense in the country with a light box. You allowed the fewest yards per rush with a light box. A light box essentially is when you have fewer defenders in the box than they have blockers. But it don't matter. When I got 370-pound Sweat and I got Byron Murphy who both demand double teams, I'll win the numbers advantage there, or I'll match the numbers that we'll be even. And so, Texas, you didn't have to worry about putting an extra guy in the box. To your point, this year, not that, the guys you had, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, and, those guys weren't necessarily Bill Norton. Not those guys weren't up to the task. They were, but you didn't have the depth either that you had last year either. And those guys weren't as disruptive, or I say they didn't hold their point as well as a Byron Murphy or a Tavondre Sweat, and nobody really expected them to, even though I think Alfred Collins did exceed expectations as a run stuffer. But to your point, you always say this, kind of reminds me of that old saying, stop, you want to earn the right
to rush the pass.
Right. And it feels like that was Bo Davis's mantra. All right, we're gonna stop the damn run, and then we're gonna earn the right to rush the quarterback. Then everybody will be in pass rush mode, as opposed to a Kenny Baker, who I remember Dan Quinn saying this. He's saying that he likes his D linemen or front guys to stop the run on the way to the quarterback. While you getting after the quarterback, go stop the run on your way there. But we getting after this damn QB, which means we get in the backfield. We're trying to get in the backfield, like you say, disrupt. We're trying to create chaos. Get in the backfield first, and then we'll worry about, all right, once we've reset the line of scrimmage, once we've disrupted everything, then we'll stop the run. But creating chaos, that's more, I think, what Kenny Baker wants to do. Yeah. And it was more of an organized effort to stop the run for Bo Davis so you could earn the right to rush the passer. Kenny Baker's like, no, we always rushing the passer because we always disrupt them, period.
Yeah. It felt like in 2023, it felt like your tackles for loss and your splash plays were a little more organic, right? Like it's just a guy winning at the point of attack. But think about in 24, go back and think of how many games, how many plays in the backfield were made where it just seemed like, man, there's 5 guys around the football. Yeah. Like, did anybody get blocked on that play? And it's because of the movement. It's because of the emphasis on, again, getting a guy's hands off you. Don't even let the lineman engage. Don't engage with him. Get their hands off of you. Get past him. Reset the line of scrimmage. Then go look for the football. Or like you said, Rod, don't even look for the football. Make a beeline to where you think where the quarterback's supposed to be, and you're probably going to run into a ball carrier or you'll get to the quarterback. It just, again, a little more not as organic, as a little more forced, but it was forced because it had to be. But kind of like you said with the explosive plays on offense, if you're a Texas fan, that should give you confidence that, you lost a lot of production on your interior D-line. But if Kenny Baker's just and PK and Johnny Nansen are naturally scheming it up to where, hey, our guys are just going to get after it, who are you going to double team? Who are you going to focus on? Oh, we're going to focus on Alex January, or we're going to focus on whoever. We're going to focus on Travis Shaw. All right. You're going to leave Colin Simmons blocked one-on-one? You're going to leave Ethan Burke blocked one-on-one? Oh, by the way, you got to deal with Anthony Hill. Oh, when we put Brad Spence in the game too, you got to deal with him too because he had 4.5 sacks last year in the SEC. So you've recruited enough guys that can naturally get after the quarterback. Now I think you're just doubling down on it.
Yeah, and I wonder this year. You lost, another good crop of defensive linemen, and you had some defensive linemen end up leaving the program. I do wonder if it'll be different this year. I agree with you. And this will be the test this year for Kenny Baker and that theory that you have just proposed. Because if indeed Kenny Baker is teaching that disruption, technique, and to just get in the backfield and create chaos, this year, I think just looking at the roster, you won't have as many veteran, experienced players to be able to carry it out. Yeah. Right? Because you're going to use a lot of young guys this year in the interior D-line. A lot of new guys. Well, I guess you're bringing in a couple of transfers, some veterans too. But behind those, the depth is going to be, I don't know if you'll have as much veteran depth as you've had in the last 2-3 years. You've had more Ojimo and then Kendrick Colburn and of course Byron Murphy and Sweat and then Collins and Brodden behind them. And even this year with guys like Bill Norton, these they were veteran players. Yeah. Those guys were veteran players. You don't have experience. You had talent, of course, you're Texas, but you don't have a lot of experience. And I wonder will that affect his ability to develop those types of techniques to just be disruptive and get in the backfield, or do you pay a price for that with youth and inexperience?
I actually think, I think it depends on what these guys can handle, because with January hasn't played a ton. Melvin Hills didn't play at all last year, and Sharma and Charles, Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles are true freshmen. So sometimes I like to, we talk about inexperienced offensive linemen where maybe you want to help them out, running more pin pull stuff and duo and things like that. I almost think it's the opposite for defensive linemen where, man, if I give them too much stuff, am I going to overwhelm them? So maybe I want them to focus on, hey, I want you to feel what it's like to win at the point of attack at this level. Whereas maybe your older guys, a Travis Shaw, a Cole Brevard, a Hero Canoe, your guys that have been more experienced, maybe your movement, your games, your slants, whatever, maybe you'll do more of that stuff when those guys are in and just maybe let the young guys go play. Or if they can handle it, in a perfect world, if they can handle it, then you can bring those guys in and you can still do twists and stunts and slants and play all kinds of games, which we saw Texas do a little more of that last year. Hopefully they get to the point where they're doing more of that this year.
I like that. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I do think they'll add a little bit, some more cheat codes, if you will, to disruption in the front, whether that be run blitzing more overall, or like you said, a lot of twists and stunts. Even though the defense was great last year, they were exotic and situationally. But there's still a lot more things they can do to be aggressive on defense. And like you said, I like when you're putting out there the twists and stunts up front. That's one of the ways they can do it.
The other area, real quick, Rod, the other area I went and looked at, you go look at front seven havoc rate, and I'll have the numbers next week. It. Johnny Nansen at Arizona, their front seven havoc rate was among the best in the country. I want to say it was like an 18% front seven havoc rate. And front seven havoc rate, I believe it was improved this year at Texas from 23 to 24. So again, I think that's something you talk about the Kenny Baker influence. That's the Johnny Nansen influence too. Of hey, let's be more aggressive up front and play some man behind it. If you can force the quarterback into making quick decisions he doesn't want to make, and guys are in the right place, then we can make big things happen. We can make big plays happen. That's another reason why Texas, even though they play more zone than man, that's how, if you're more disruptive up front, that's how you end up leading the nation in interceptions. You're forcing the quarterback to make some really bad decisions, getting rid of the ball before he wants to.
And you got the linebackers to do it. Anthony Hill, he's a disruptive force. Leandro Fowles a disruptive force. You like Anthony Smith as one of those guys who can make plays in the passing game.
Brad Spence will be one of those guys.
Yeah, good pass rushing linebacker. I think Jerry said he's best pass rushing linebacker Texas had in years. Just a guy that can naturally rush from that second level. Anthony Hill's a great pass rusher, but you just want to put him on the edge and just let him go. You don't necessarily want him blitzing from the second level. He could do that, but he can just win on the edge. But Brad Spence may add another element to that. All right, good stuff, Jeff, as always. Let's thank Laura Baker one more time. Football Theory brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So please give her a shout today if you have any concerns regarding real estate in the Austin area. 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Or reach out to her at Laura at AndyAllenTeam.com. Thank you very much to Laura Baker and her team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football and sponsoring Football Theory once again. All right, thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, doing a great job as always. Jeff, thank you, man. I love having you on Football Theory. Always one of the highlights of my week. And I hope it was a highlight of your week, too, out there watching and listening. For Jeff and for Matthew, also for Laura Baker as well. Thank you to her and for everybody watching and listening. Until next time, hook 'em horns.